Good morning and welcome to a special debate edition of This Week in South Florida.
We are so glad you could join us for a live debate between the two leading candidates for Miami-Dade County Mayor. Carlos Gimenez was elected Miami-Dade Mayor in a special election in 2011, re-elected in 2012. He is a former Miami-Dade County Commissioner, Miami City Manager, and Miami Fire Chief.
Raquel Regalado is a Miami-Dade County School Board member, elected to that position in 2010 and re-elected 2 years ago. She is a lawyer and also a radio broadcaster.
There are a total of 7 candidates running for Miami-Dade Mayor on the August 30th primary ballot. Here are their names, but only Mr. Gimenez and Ms. Regalado received more than 10% support in a recent reputable poll, and 10% was our threshold for an invitation to take part in this debate.
So good morning and welcome, and thank you for being here. And first we want to set up sort of the debate format. We're going to do this in alternating questions, and everyone will have up to 1 minute to answer. We'll be a little loose with that. We don't have a time clock today. Also a 45-second rebuttal time, and then later each candidate is going to have an opportunity to ask each other a question or two. And then at the very end we'll have 1 minute each for closing statements at the end.
So let's get going. Ms. Regalado, it's been recently reported that you had some problems with your own personal finances, that you had filed for a homestead exemption on a home for 2 years, 2013, 2014, an exemption the property appraiser says you didn't deserve, and now you've got a tax bill for roughly $4,000. Why did you file for an exemption if you didn't deserve it? And if you were having problems managing your own money, how can you manage a $7.1 billion a year county budget?
Well, Michael, I think that it's important to clarify the process here. I actually received notification of what the property appraiser was claiming from the Miami Herald. The property appraiser's office has said that they never even contacted me. So there's a lot of questions as to how this came about. I had a very messy divorce, and as a result, there was a foreclosure. My ex-husband and I are working on this. We're going to clear it up. There was no intent to commit fraud. There was simply rights that he had under the divorce. And I'd like to take this opportunity to tell our viewers that, you know, for those of you who have been divorced, who have been in these situations, my ex-husband has been wonderful about this, a true gentleman. I can no longer ask him to go to the property appraisers with me, but he says that he is going to help. We are going to clear it up in time. He's remarried. He lives outside of Miami-Dade County. We did nothing wrong. It was simply something that happened with the bank. And I think this is an opportunity that when I am the mayor, I'm going to work with the property appraiser, because the research that I've done over the last few weeks is that a lot of people who had short sales and foreclosures were sent these notices and erroneously told that they had filed, that they had committed homestead fraud, when in fact it was simply a misunderstanding between the bank, the owner, and the property appraiser.
A misunderstanding. Mayor Gimenez, your rebuttal?
My rebuttal is that every year I get a little card that says, are you still living in your home, or you're not living in your home? If you're not living in your home, you can't claim homestead exemption. 700,000 people file correctly. Ms. Regalado is also a member of the Value Adjustment Board. She knows the rules, and so for 2 years she was claiming homestead exemption on a house that was under her name, not her and her husband, for 2 years, and that's called homestead exemption fraud. She obviously can't fill out a simple little form that said that 700,000 of us can, and I've been living in my house for 23 years. I get it. She must have gotten it because I'm sure her mail was forwarded to her, and she failed to do the right thing, and she failed to pay the property taxes. She failed to say that she wasn't living at that house, and she claimed homestead exemption when she shouldn't have claimed homestead exemption. Simple as that.
Michael, to clarify, I bought that house when I was married, so on the title it is Raquel Regalado, a married woman. I'm an attorney. For those attorneys that are watching, you know that that means that my husband is also on title, and there is a divorce decree that speaks to that. As for Carlos's point about whether I can file a paperwork or not, I think it's important that we consider the abuse of power in this situation. And look, it's funny that
where does the abuse of power, where does it occur?
In terms of the lack of informing me as to this investigation, but I think it's very telling because the property appraiser's office failed to inform me. The blogger that brought this got this letter and gave it to the Miami Herald. I didn't receive it until 3 days later. But I think it's interesting because Carlos, when he went to file his qualifying documents, he wrote the check out incorrectly and the check bounced. And then he brought it the day before the end of qualifying. And at the elections department, they received it at 10:30 p.m. at night. So if I can't file a piece of paper, you can't write a check. And you know, these things happen. And interestingly, unlike other candidates that have to wait till the next day, he gets to have the elections department wait up for him until 10:30 at night
I'm
the
sorry,
day before qualifying.
that is completely false. What happened is my campaign, when they wrote the check, it had 2015 instead of 2016. The check never bounced because it was never cashed. And it wasn't one day before the end of qualifying. It was 3 or 4 days before the end of qualifying. The elections department called my campaign and said, hey, you may have a problem there, like they would do with any other campaign.
No special treatment?
No special treatment
So
whatsoever.
why was it stamped at 10:30 at night?
Because they were open at 10:30 at night, and so we said, "How long are you going to be open?" Well, we're going to change the check just in case, because the check never bounced.
Do you deny that you're the only candidate whose documents were received after 5 o'clock? Because I went through all the qualifying documents, and you're the only one.
The documents, I could have waited until Monday, the next day, the next weekend, in order to put the check. They were open. Okay, we can do that. We'll go ahead and did, and that's exactly what we did.
I'd like to turn now to a topic that I know a lot of people in Miami-Dade County consider their #1 issue, and that is traffic and transportation. Mayor, in 2002, this county and its voters passed a half penny for a special transportation tax. We pay it to this day, and it was supposed to come with 89 miles of new rail lines. 14 years later, there is just a fraction of that. And from the reporting we've done, we know that the future transportation and the investments that your administration is making is in mainly bus service, which travels the same congested roads that we all sit upon this day.
Right.
Why is that appropriate? What can you do, what will you do, and why haven't you done yet to ease everybody's commute?
Well, what we are doing is we are putting a new smart, intelligent traffic signalization system in Miami-Dade County. It's being tried out right now. $41 million is being allocated to that next year. 12 of the most congested routes will have a new smart, adaptive traffic signalization system. Back in 2002, when I wasn't even a county commissioner, it was unfortunate that the people of Miami-Dade County were lied to. There was no way they could have built the 8 lines. But during my time as the mayor, we passed through and went to the MPO and got them to approve the SMART plan. The SMART plan is we will be building 6 of those rail corridors in the very near future. And so, but we need to have the commitment of the political commitment of our MPO members and the people of Miami-Dade County. If somebody tells you right now that they can go ahead and build Metro Rail, they're going to be misleading you, because every single mile of Metro Rail is $250 million. So that would be about $15 billion that we would have to spend for Metro Rail right now, and we can't do that. So we have different technology for the SMART plan. Some may be light rail or some other technologies. We will be building out those 6 corridors in the next 4 to 10 years, because it does take that long. And then we need to make short-term solutions right now. Most of our people are in the street right now in their cars. We need to make our streets and our traffic lights smarter so that we can, move traffic a lot better.
I think your time is up here, Ms. Regalado.
I think it's fascinating to watch Carl's rewrite history. Here you have a mayor that for his first 3 years in office used the half penny money to balance the budget. Here you have someone that halted all our federal funding. When he was elected, we were supposed to extend Metro Rail into Broward. So here's the SMART plan that he has. If you notice, it doesn't cross the Miami-Dade County Broward line. If you speak to anyone in Washington, anyone that understands how federal funding works, the bulk of the funding is across the county line. So why aren't we going north? That was the promise that was made. There's a lot of need, but he hasn't. He just applied for federal funding this year for buses. But what about the last 4 years
Can
where
we
they weren't
follow
applying?
up with a question, the same question to you? What would you do better as mayor?
Well, first of all, you need to use the half penny as it was intended to be used. You can't use it for maintenance. In his budget, he cut Metrobus by $3 million this year. Here we're talking about a mayor that has an 87% rate in terms of buses being on time. How are you going to increase ridership if the buses are not on time? Let's stop talking about it and go to the federal government, do what we said that we were going to do. We haven't applied for the federal funding. The money is there. There's money in Tallahassee. Jacksonville has gotten over $1 billion in transit funds, but he has commingled transit funds, making it almost impossible for us to apply for those grants.
Hold on just a minute, please. Have you commingled transit funds?
No, we have not commingled transit funds. Some time ago, the commission decided that they needed to use that half penny, part of that half penny, to fund the current system.
Right.
And so what I've been doing during my administration is weaning ourselves off, making more and more money available for the capital. Now, Ms. Regalado thinks that all she needs to do is go to Washington and everything's going to be solved, or go to Tallahassee. We have to solve our own problems here in Miami-Dade. And to think that somehow, she said recently she's going to take $70 million and go to Washington, and they're going to build all the metro rail lines. $15 billion, you know, that's not what Washington's going to do. And so what we need to do, and what we are doing, we are going through the federal process in order to be eligible for whatever funding is available. It's not going to be $15 billion. We're going to be able to get one, maybe two of these lines funded partially by the federal government. But at the end of the day, it's going to be up to us to solve our problems, not people in Tallahassee, not people in Washington.
And that will take us to our first break. We are just getting started. We'll see you in 2 minutes. And welcome back. Everybody.
Welcome back. We're so glad you're with us. We have live in our studio on this Sunday morning Miami-Dade Mayor Carlos Gimenez running for re-election and his main challenger, Raquel Regalado. Ms. Regalado, you have said about the Miami-Dade County Police Department that it is understaffed, underfunded. You say Miami-Dade County is less safe now under Mayor Gimenez than it was before. Statistics don't seem to bear that out. How do you make that argument?
Well, if you look at the way that the statistics are gathered, right, the reality is that our population has grown. People are not reporting crimes. One of the things that we've been forced to do at the school district is create our own gang unit because Carlos Gimenez eliminated the gang unit. We're seeing more juvenile violence than we have ever seen in Miami-Dade County. Over 320 children have died on his watch. You know, he stood at the pulpit at King Carter's wake and said this is never going to happen again. And over a dozen children have died since that point. I have the support of the PBA because they understand how important public safety is. And it's not just the police. I mean, I hope we talk about Zika too. We talk about domestic violence. We could talk about the rape kits and how behind they are. There are a series of issues that have to do with public safety that Carlos Gimenez has neglected because he does not think that they're important.
What is the principal failing you believe of the mayor for public safety in Miami-Dade?
Well, we need more police officers. We need to reinstate the specialty unit. I think that when he eliminated the gang unit, the robbery unit, the units that were helping across the county with the different municipalities, he did a lot of damage. He hasn't worked with the school district. He hasn't worked with other municipalities.
Well, the school district has its own police department.
We have its own police. Yeah, we have our own police department, but we have a different type of policing. I've been an advocate of civil citation. We're not there to arrest children. We can only do so much. But I think it's interesting that, you know, Gimenez earlier was saying that, you know, I'm talking about going to Tallahassee and going to Washington and we need to solve our own problems.
Right, well,
we can't
hold on.
solve our problems by ourselves.
All right.
And that's his issue, the lack of
Raquel,
partnering
hold
with
on a
different
minute.
people.
I just think we need to give the mayor a chance to respond on the police issue and public safety.
The police
and
issue
staffing.
is that the statistics talk for themselves. Crime continues to go down, has been going down for a number of years, and it continues to go down here in Miami-Dade County. I don't micromanage the police department. They organize and reorganize themselves in the way they see fit, and the proof is in the pudding. Crime is going down. We have a problem with youth violence, and we do have a problem with youth violence, but we have now taken steps in order to sidetrack those kids that may be prone to violence with new and innovative programs. And so, you know,
you're assigning individual police
absolutely.
officers,
We assign
some
individual,
of the high-risk kids.
Exactly, and so we identify them, and so we're working also with the school system, and because the number one issue when it comes to youth violence is they're truants. They don't go to school, and also they fall behind in reading. And so that is the first indication that these kids are going to go to in the wrong way. We can identify those kids, and we're going to be intervening with those kids. Now, look, the thing about more police officers in Chicago, which is the murder capital of the world, they have 2.7 million people. We have 2.7 million people. In Chicago, they have 12,000 police officers. We have about 6,000. So the correlation of adding all police officers doesn't really fit when you say, hey, wait, how come Chicago has such a high crime rate? How come Chicago has such a high murder rate when they have twice the number of police officers? The issue is you got to make the police officers smart, and you got to give them the technology to make sure that the time that they're spending is time well spent.
Yeah.
And
Mayor,
we're investing in
excuse
technology.
me, Mayor, there's been a lot of criticism about the dismantling of not only the gang unit, but the dismantling of the public corruption unit, and you've actually been blamed for that.
Mm-hmm.
What you just said was that it wasn't your decision, that this is a police matter. Would you advocate reinstating the kind of departments like public corruption? The gang
Wait,
unit?
hold on a second. Public corruption has never been dismantled. And so that is a misnomer. What we did with public corruption is public corruption used to investigate Miami-Dade County politicians and all right? And that is not correct, because you can't have the fox guarding the hen house, because the politicians of Miami-Dade County are the ones that give the benefits to the Miami-Dade Police Department. What we did is we took that portion of the public corruption and gave it to the FBI, an independent body, so that nobody could say who's going to be investigated, what's going to happen, and there would be no direction from the mayor's office, because that was also a criticism of the past, that the mayor had way too much influence on the police department.
The former mayor was, of course, a police director. Ms. Regalado,
But if I could just
give
say
you a
something really
chance
quick,
here to
'cause
rebut.
I think it's important for people to understand that the mayor of Miami-Dade County is the sheriff. The fact that Carlos Gimenez refuses to take responsibility, I mean, earlier we were talking about transportation and the commingling of funds, and he said, well, the commission did. Now he's saying the head of the police department did. Carlos Gimenez is never responsible, but here's the thing: you're the strong mayor of Miami-Dade County. You're the sheriff.
Right.
You're the person that is elected to take responsibility. So it's amazing to me that you refuse to do that. That being said, don't confuse people with the numbers about Chicago. Let's talk about how many cases you're closing and how many cases people are reporting. Anyone that lives in Miami-Dade County can tell you that when their car is broken into, they don't report that to the police. What we see on the juvenile violence side is that gangs are paying.
How do you know that? You
children.
don't know that.
Yeah.
You can't say stuff
Yes,
like
you
that.
How do you know that
can't,
people,
okay?
your car's broken into, people don't call the
People
police?
are not calling the police. You can talk to the very police officers. Look at the response times in unincorporated Dade. It's just too complicated to wait hours and hours for someone to come. What the gangs are doing is they're telling these kids not to break windows. They open people's cars, they steal stuff, but since they don't break a window, people don't call the police and they don't report it to the insurance companies. We know that they're paying these children between the ages of 10 and 12, $65 a night to commit these crimes. And we're not closing these cases. Let's talk about the amount of cases that your administration has closed. Let's talk about the rape kits and how behind you are. Let's talk about the reduction in funding to domestic violence. Even though Miami-Dade County...
We have not reduced
you
funding.
have reduced
No, we have
funding.
not reduced funding to domestic violence. You just make stuff up.
Wait,
You
can I
come in
just
here and
get-
you make stuff up,
Excuse
and you
me,
think, well, you
Ms.
have all
Regalado,
these
cite your
supposed
source.
facts, and they're not true.
Cite
They are
your
not
source.
true. All right, and you keep doing that
Excuse me.
over and over again.
I'd just like to hear, cite your
Yes.
source.
If you look at Carlos Gimenez's budget over the last 4 years, there has been a reduction in domestic violence. There's been a reduction at the federal level for the amount of money that we're receiving. There's been a reduction in transition. The federal government is moving from 22 months to 7 months. He has not even spoken on the issue of in transition housing and the impact that it's having. In the city of Hialeah alone, there was an 11% increase in domestic violence. So how is it that we have a county that every year we have more domestic violence cases? Last year, over 25,000
All right,
domestic
let's give
violence
the
cases.
mayor a
city of
chance to
Hialeah,
respond.
the city of
More money.
Hialeah has
Ms.
their
Regalado,
own
hold on.
police department. So she's mumbling all of these facts together. We have not reduced funding for domestic violence. As a matter of fact, we did have a reduction from the federal government, which is what you said. Let's go to the federal government. Let them solve all our problems. You know what we did? We made up for it. We didn't close any of the housing units, and we didn't eliminate any of the positions. So we didn't reduce it. So did you have a reduction from the federal government? Yeah, and every time they do that, we have to make it up. And we will make it up, because that's what we have to do. We have to solve our problem. Can we go to the federal government asking for money? Absolutely. But when they don't come through, and believe me, they're coming through less and less, we have to solve our own problems.
Quick break,
You
we'll be
don't
right
go and
back.
do that.
Oh, yes, we did.
No, you don't.
Thank you. If you are just joining us, we are in the middle of a debate between Mayor Carlos Gimenez, challenger Raquel Regalado. Mayor, I wanted to ask you about something that 127,000 people signed petitions for campaign finance reform, essentially to stop people profiting off the county in major ways to be able to contribute. Those petitions are sitting in a warehouse uncounted, and the commission could not find a forum to order that to happen. I guess the question is, will you use your powers during this recess of the commission to get the ball rolling and get those counted? So this
Unfortunately,
might make the November
I
ballot.
asked our county attorney if I had that power during recess, and she said I did not, and I have it in written form. And so, unfortunately, I can't order the supervisor of elections to do that. Only the commission can do that. That's part of our charter. And I wanted to make sure, and so I asked for a legal opinion. I got the legal opinion. It's already back, and I can't do that.
What
I
was
want
the
them.
legal opinion that why was that not included in the mayoral recess powers? What exempts that?
It wasn't, but you know, it wasn't. That's something that was done some time ago. It's part of the charter, and I guess they didn't put it in. But if I don't have the power, and I don't have the power according to the county attorney, I can't do it. I want those petitions to be counted. I want that.
Do you want to get it
I
on
want
the
to get it
November
on the
ballot?
November ballot, but unfortunately, I don't have that power to do that right now, and it was verified by the county attorney.
I am an attorney. I disagree with the opinion that the county attorney issued. I've gone over the documents, and I think you can make a very good case for the mayor's ability to bring this to the elections department. I mean, we were talking at the beginning about Mayor Gimenez and how the elections department waits for him late at night. So I think this is an opportunity for him to go a little beyond what the county attorney is doing. You know, one of the things that I hope that we have the time to talk about, and I know that this is our only debate, is all the litigation that Carlos Gimenez has brought to Miami-Dade County. I have sued him on several occasions and won. We never get to talk about those issues, but here you have one where I truly believe that the mayor of Miami-Dade County should step up and do the right thing. And if that ends,
what is that? Use the bully pulpit to get the chairman to call special
Of course, you can
commission
have a
meeting
special meeting. You can have a special meeting. I believe that it is within his powers. The mayor of Miami-Dade County has never used his executive powers. He has executive powers under the charter. You know,
do what?
I also, you know, to
do what?
ask the elections department to start counting them and to call a special meeting. I
That
would have
is
done
against
it.
the charter. You
is-
just make stuff up. You just make it up like
No.
anybody. You just
I'm an
make
attorney.
It,
You're
that
not an
is-
attorney. You need
no,
to
I'm just.
look
I know.
at the
I'm. You know what?
charter.
You're right.
You're
I am
relying
just.
on the
I am
opinion of
just.
an
I'm
attorney.
just a firefighter,
You're
just like you said at
firefighter.
the. I'm just a
You're just a
firefighter, just like
firefighter.
you said
That's
at
why
the
you've
head of
gotten
the
us into
editorial
so
board.
many litigations.
No,
How many
no.
litigations
Actually,
have
you
you
filed
gotten
most
us
of them,
into?
and you haven't won any of them.
Well, let's talk about
Okay.
the fire fee. Why don't we talk about, you know, your legacy
Well,
at the
there's
city
something-
of Miami, because
Hold-
you were the
hold-
one that
hold
brought
on.
the fire
I-
fee that ended in
Ms.
6 years
Regalado,
of
I-
litigation.
Time out here. Don't want to talk about the history of the city of Miami when I
But he says
covered.
he leaves things
All right,
better than he
but I
found
want
them,
to
and
move
that's
on.
not the
I want to
case.
move on.
Absolutely
I
That's
want to
not the
move on.
case.
I want to move on to a subject I think of more significance for right now, and that is Liberty Square Rising. This is an investment of $307 million, the biggest public investment in Liberty City ever. And Mayor Gimenez, you pushed this. You are the principal advocate for it. We're looking at some renderings of what it's going to look like after the squalid and crime-ridden neighborhood on 62nd Street from 12th to 14th Avenues, roughly in the city of Miami. It's called Pork and Beans there. It's a very tough area, and it would be replaced by these first-class apartments and retail and some community centers, health centers. Why did you push for this, and why now?
Because as a firefighter, I responded to Liberty Square 40 years ago, and I saw the conditions then, and I know, and I visited Liberty Square, and I know what conditions that they're living in today, and we have to do the right thing. And so there was a process. There was a developer that was chosen, and we're going to do the right thing. It's going to be completely redeveloped. That whole neighborhood, that 50 square acres, is going to have new public housing units and more importantly, new affordable and workforce housing units, about 800 of them,
Right.
which is desperately needed.
Their first supermarket
exactly.
in
now,
maybe
what's
25
also
or
interesting
30
is
years.
that Ms. Regalado was against it. She was against the redevelopment. She stood out in front and said
That's
that this
not
is not
true.
the right thing to do, that she was with the people that were against the redevelopment. And she says it's not
I
true.
was
She
against the
there.
way. I was against the way that he did it because again, he has proven over his last 5 years that he doesn't care about process. The reason he's involved in litigation with the PBA, with the school board, you know, is because he doesn't follow the process.
Well, where did
My
he
issue-
where did he
did he
violate
not follow?
process
Well,
with Liberty Square?
The issue with the RFP and the way that it was rolled out, what happened with the committee, what happened with the votes, you know, there's been a lot of people that have objected to that process. That being said, I'm not against the redevelopment of Liberty Square. We all agree that Liberty Square should be redeveloped. And at this point, what I want to clarify is the lies that Carlos Gimenez has said about this project. Because number one, he's told people in Liberty Square that this is happening right now. This is not happening right now. The WASA part of this, the water and sewer part of this, will delay this for another year. And what he has done is handed over the keys of a public housing unit and development to the related group. He has promised the people in Liberty Square over and over again that they're going to live
County,
there. No, wait,
Miami-Dade
wait.
County will own this eventually.
No, the related group is the management company that will decide who lives there. He
No,
has
no,
not
no, that's
dealt
not. That
with
is not
the
true.
non-HUD
Again,
compliance.
she makes
He
stuff
has
up like
not-
you wouldn't believe.
No.
They have to comply with county code, and they have to comply also with federal law. So she just makes stuff
The
up
related
all the time.
group, it is not the county,
The-
it is the related group, the management company that will have the keys to Liberty Square. He can dance
The
around that as
the
many
public
times
housing
as he
units
wants.
of Liberty Square are bound by federal law and the county process. And no matter how many times you say it, that is the absolute truth. No matter how many times you sit here and try to
It's not just
mislead
me.
the
It's
people.
Audrey Edmondson. It's the people in the community who want to know about the
No
appellate
matter
process.
how much you want to
haven't
mislead
been
the
honest
people,
with
it's not.
people.
I am very
It's not
honest with
about,
people,
no, you're
Ms.
not.
Regalado.
You're not. You haven't been honest
Ms.
about
Regalado.
non-HUD compliance.
Ms.
How many people in Liberty Square are not going to be able to come back? Why won't you
Every
talk about Scott Carver?
single person in Liberty Square is going to be able to come back if they're eligible. If they're
eligible.
eligible
But
to
what
come
does
back
that
right
mean?
now. Well, there's some people living there that may not be eligible
They
to live there.
haven't been
But you know,
non-HUD compliant
everybody
in
who
over
wants to
20
come,
years, in over
everybody who
20
wants to come
years.
back to Liberty Square. As a matter of fact, they didn't even have to leave there because the
You
development
said
will
the
happen.
same thing with Scott Carver. That was the same
Ma'am,
line.
and that's exactly those are the lessons that we learn. Nobody from Liberty
You have
Square
not
has
done
to
anything
leave.
differently.
You know, Ms. Regalado, you continue to mislead the people. You continue to mislead the people.
The one who misleads people is you.
No, ma'am.
Explain
I'm
non-HUD
sorry.
Okay, I'm going to jump in
compliance.
here and
Explain
say
what that means.
we are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we are going to give everybody a chance to ask direct questions to each other. We'd like to save a little bit of time for that.
Okay.
So stay with us.
Welcome back live in our studio on this Sunday morning. The candidates for Miami-Dade County Mayor, Carlos Gimenez, the incumbent, and challenger Raquel Regalado. Ms. Regalado, if you have a question for the mayor, let's hear it.
Well, we haven't had the opportunity to talk about Zika, so I wanted to ask the mayor about Zika. These are some documents from the Miami-Dade County Zika plan, which is very interesting because the Miami-Dade County Mosquito Control has been focusing its efforts on where people call 311. So I find it very interesting that it's so well documented in the press what has been happening with Zika at a national level. There's plenty of correspondence to your office from the federal and state government. We know that this is a public safety concern. There are so many pregnant women right now in Miami-Dade County who every time they
so
see
what is your
a
question?
mosquito, they're concerned. Why is it that despite everything that you were told when you presented your budget in June, you did not have one additional penny for mosquito control?
Absolutely. In this particular, we had 1.8 in last year's budget. We had 2.3 in this year's budget. But again, the budget is just a plan. And so we will spend whatever money is necessary in order to make sure that we combat Zika.
With all your experience, did you
am I
not
going to
see
be
it
allowed to
coming?
answer? Can I be allowed to answer?
Hold
And so
on,
we did
please.
see it coming. And so way before, back in February, when we saw that we were getting additional people, we were getting travel-related cases here of Zika, I told my people, forget about the budget, go and do what you have to do. We've been following CDC and State Department of Health guidelines from the get-go, from day one. The 311 calls that you see as we respond to complaints about infestations and we take care of them. But we also go into certain other areas where we know that there are, one thing that you may not know is that every time that there is a travel-related case of Zika that we confirm by our Department of Health, we go to that area, the entire area, and we make sure that that area is cleaned out. And so we have taken we took all the precautions necessary. Unfortunately, we had an outbreak in Wynwood due to, in large portion, because of the lack of code enforcement in that area that allowed the infestation of some mosquitoes.
That's the city of Miami.
That's the city of Miami. And the lack of code enforcement in that area that allowed an infestation in a small area. We have now gone into Wynwood. We have gone into Wynwood and we have basically eradicated most of the mosquitoes there because we want to make sure that Wynwood.
But that's not what the science shows. That's not what your report says.
The science,
you haven't been controlling the mosquito population. If you look at your own Zika report, it says that you're only having traps in different affluent areas where people are calling 311. There's nothing in the urban. This is your data.
That is
This is your data.
That is absolutely not true.
So your data is false.
We have
so
traps.
The Zika report is false. I just want to make
I
it
think that
clear.
was asked and answered, Mayor.
We have traps in all areas of Miami-Dade County. We actually are having a slow mosquito season, believe it or not. We just happen to have a Zika outbreak in Wynwood. All right, but it's actually a very slow mosquito season, and we have done everything according to CDC and what the State Department.
Excuse me, Mayor, I'd like to give you an opportunity to ask your question to Ms. Regalado. This is your opportunity to ask a question.
There are a ton of questions that my campaign has asked me to ask Ms. Regalado, but you know what? My mother's always taught me to be a gentleman, and so you know what? I think I'm going to pass.
Then allow me to use this last bit of time that we have to ask a question very important to a lot of people who contact us from what's called the Pets Trust, who are very angry that despite what is a non-binding straw poll that shows people overwhelmingly voted for a pets trust dedicated to animal services. They accuse you of not listening to that voice. How do you respond to them, and what have you done?
Here's how I respond to it. Well, the budget for animal services has increased 8 times during my administration. We have a brand new state-of-the-art shelter, animal shelter, the largest air-conditioned animal shelter in the entire United States. Our save rate went from a little bit over 50% for dogs to about 90% for dogs now, and from 15% for cats to about 90% for cats. So we've actually accomplished most, if not all, of what the Pets Trust has wanted. The Pets Trust wants a $20 million increase in taxes. And the Pets Trust is a big supporter of Ms. Regalado. So I guess that means that Ms. Regalado is going to implement a $20 million increase in taxes when it's absolutely not necessary.
Ms.
I want to
Regalado,
give you
45
15
seconds.
seconds to respond.
He's completely wrong. I mean, the reason I have the support of the Pet Trust is that even as a school board member, I did a video that I had privately funded to educate our kids about spay and neutering. There's so much that we could do for the Pets Trust. We are not a no-kill county. He has spent a ridiculous amount of money in a new shelter that, by the way, was slated before he was even elected. He has a lot of staff in that shelter. We still have a cat sanctuary. They're not picking up cats. The Pet Trust has a reason to be upset with Mayor Gimenez. He did violate the will of the people, and I will implement it, but that doesn't mean we have to raise taxes, because there's so much that we can do.
Well, exactly how are you going to implement the will of the people if you're not going to raise taxes?
The budget that you've already put forth already has the money that you need to implement it. You're just using it improperly at the animal shelter with all the staff that you have there. Yes.
I hate to put a stop.
No, I do have to have one final thing, because she said something that was incorrect. Something is incorrect. It was my administration that found the money necessary to build that animal shelter.
That was slated. I said it was slated well before
but you
were elected.
But you didn't say that there was money missing from it, and we found the money to build that shelter during my administration.
$29 million.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
All right, boy, we could go on and on here, could we not?
And just may I say how much everybody appreciates that you were both here and speaking without filters. After the break, we take this and other major topics you care about to the roundtable. Stay with us.
Welcome back. It is that time for a closer look at the top stories in the week's news with some informed opinion and well-judged opinion, I should say, with our
You're supposed to straighten your tie when you say that. We are glad to make these introductions. Welcome back to veteran journalist Andrea Robinson, now an editor and reporter with the Miami Times, formerly with the Miami Herald. Tony Mann is political reporter for the Sun Sentinel. He actually broke the story at the Democratic convention that Debbie Wasserman Schultz would be resigning as chair of the DNC. Mark Caputo is the Florida correspondent for Politico, website for all things political, and he writes the Politico Florida Playbook, which shows up in our email every morning at dark 100 hours. Welcome.
Welcome. Glad to have you all come in. Andrea, let me begin with you. You just heard the candidates for Miami-Dade mayor go at it passionately.
Very passionately.
And was there one who sort of got the upper hand? I mean, what do you think?
They were going at it so aggressively. I'm not sure if anyone got the upper hand. I thought there were some missed opportunities, particularly with Carlos Gimenez with the rail situation, because people are clamoring for that here in Dade County. And I didn't hear anything definitive from him as to how he could make that happen when the people in South Dade are saying, give us rail, nothing else.
Well,
and
he did mention that there are these 6 rail corridors. But he didn't say they're going to do them simultaneously, or who's going to pay, or where the money is going to come from.
Exactly. So you're still left with, okay, these jokers they've had since 2002 to start on this. The money has been there, and they did nothing. So that's, to me, more of the same.
Tony,
that was a missed opportunity for him.
Tony, you actually report mostly in Broward, so you have sort of this objective bird's eye view. Who won this, if anyone?
I think probably the mayor won it by not committing a catastrophic mistake. I mean, that's the big thing an incumbent
The standard
wants
is that low?
Well, it is in these. It is
First,
in these
do no
debates.
harm.
Right. I mean, that's the big thing. You know, if you're an incumbent and you're doing reasonably well, as long as you don't mess something up in a debate, you probably came out the winner.
All right, let's move on because time is limited to the presidential race. And Wednesday night, you, Tony, and Mark, you and I were in Sunrise.
Actually, I wasn't, because the Trump campaign has banned Politico for covering his events.
Really?
Is that true?
Oh yeah, for quite some time, because we questioned his crowd size. Size matters for Donald Trump, and he doesn't want people thinking he has small size.
Well, for what it's worth, I was there, and even though that's a 20,000 seat facility, I thought by the time he came out at 8:23 p.m., that it was better than half full. I thought that it was a pretty sizable crowd for no notice and a rainy day. I thought it was anyway. My point is, Tony, the crowd. I rarely have seen so many angry white people in one place.
And boy, they were angry, and they got angrier as the evening went on.
Did they ever?
As he was whipping them up, to some extent during the intro speeches, but boy, when he was really riling them up, I mean, people were getting mad at the media, at President Obama, at Secretary Clinton. I mean, it was,
Right,
it was
lock
pretty
her
intense.
up. And then when he talked about the media, the cry was, lock them up.
And turning and booing toward the media, and it was just a pretty.
Well, that's all right. We get paid a nice salary to have people. We don't necessarily want them to like us. We hope that they believe what we report. But
Well,
And
let's
the
talk
extent of the
about
reaction was pretty strong.
let's talk about what it says about the Trump campaign. This is the body language of losers. When your team is losing, and there is a strong correlation between sports and politics, suddenly you start blaming the ref. And that's basically what they're doing. Trump's campaign is spinning out of control. He was expected to pivot, but the problem with Donald Trump is that his pivots are 360 degrees. They're more like pirouettes, but he's lost his balance and he's spun out of control. He says Barack Obama is the founder of ISIS. It's absurd, it's false, it's ridiculous, and even conservative talk radio show hosts who try to cover for him, he was on Hugh Hewitt's show, Hugh said, hey, I know what you meant, figuratively meant this, and then Trump said, no, Obama founded ISIS. This is what craziness sounds like, and that's the problem they're having.
And then the following day, of course, he said, "Oh, I was being sarcastic. The media doesn't get sarcasm."
But nobody hears
no one
that.
gets his humor, right?
No, it's humor. Oh my God, this guy has taken humor to the toilet level. And the thing is that he's ginning people up who believe what he says, what he initially says, and he's ratcheting up hate. It has gotten to the point. I grew up in Mississippi in the 1960s. I recognize whatever you want to call it, the dog whistles or whatever, but he is setting this up so if he loses in November, people are going to be so angry, there is going to be violence. He just had this week 2 Muslims killed in New York City, and I wondered when I heard that, what role did Trump play in that?
It was such a visual, the speech where he called out the Second Amendment people. He said, well, we don't know what the Second Amendment people are going to do if Hillary Clinton. If you look to his right, there was someone sitting behind him, a fan, a supporter,
Who said,
who
very visibly.
You can read his lips. If his own supporters are shocked at that kind of comment, what does that say about everybody else?
What it says is that Donald Trump lacks the discipline to realize that he is not in a bar in Brooklyn. He's not in a construction firm boardroom where it's a bunch of guys talking about, like, yeah, I'll knock your head in, I'll do it. You can't talk like that.
Yet he does talk like that, and there are people who, write to us who are fine with it.
Exactly, and it says for the BB&T Center, regardless as to the number of the crowd, but to have the number of people who were there. I was shocked when I saw that, and the level of hate speech. When the New York Times did that, the audio extraction, I couldn't listen to it because I grew up hearing that. What does that say about this country? Where are we?
Yeah. Let's move on to Hillary Clinton. I went to the Borinquen Clinic in Midtown where she visited and talked with doctors and other staff there about Zika, and I thought it was a good appearance. But Tony, the fact is that because of what Trump is doing, the emails that then the new wave of emails from WikiLeaks about preferences, special deals that donors to the Clinton Foundation gave when she was Secretary of State, they got special treatment. That is all kind of sub rosa. I mean, it's not getting the kind of attention you would think it would get.
But that's because Trump keeps stepping on the story that could be of benefit to him, and keeps talking about this other stuff. Back up on Zika for a moment. Obviously Secretary Clinton did this political event at the health clinic that we both saw. But what was startling is then the next night, Donald Trump again doesn't mention a word about Zika.
Right.
And I don't
Huckabee
get that
jokes
at all.
about it.
Huckabee comes out, he does the intro, and Huckabee's the guy that I think the New York Times says is going to be maybe one of the people that's going to go on the campaign trail to try and tame Trump. And Huckabee goes on and he jokes in his intro that he's more afraid of Hillary Clinton than getting a mosquito bite in South Florida. I don't get that at all. That really
Nothing's
seems,
funnier than microcephaly in an infant, I gotta say.
Right, that-
Great joke, Mike.
That was the strangest thing. I
You know,
don't
my
get that at
question
all.
is, there seem to be dribs and drabs of these emails coming out. Why doesn't WikiLeaks just put them all out at the same time?
Well, I think there's two different batches of emails we're also talking about. Judicial Watch has a separate batch that have been coming out. It appears that WikiLeaks is getting its information from Russian agents, and there is a desire to, if not embarrass the Democrats, to affect the election. That appears to be the case. We don't know that's a fact. Back on
Well,
Hillary's...
Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks, has said that he doesn't want Clinton
go.
elected. He wants to do that. Exactly.
So I
So
think
he's
that
being
answers it.
strategic in his leaks and the timing of them.
And one thing that's interesting about Clinton's visit and how it contrasts with Trump, I mean, Trump turns out crowds. I don't agree that Trump per se has kind of hate speech or racial hate speech. Now, I understand there are a lot of dog whistles and all of that, but he inspires people to come out and see him. Hillary Clinton's ability to, she couldn't inspire a thirsty man to drink a glass of water. She does not have these big crowds. There is just not the passion I'm seeing for her. However, there's more passion hating Donald Trump than hating Hillary Clinton, I think, so it might balance out.
All right. Well, before we run out of time, Tony, you did some great reporting in Philadelphia at the convention. You were the first to report of any media that Debbie Wasserman Schultz was going to be stepping down as the DNC chair. As of this morning now, she debated Tim Canova, her opponent, once and won and done. She apparently is not going to do it again.
Well, she's clearly the front runner in the race, and by all accounts, she's doing very well and will continue to do very well. Canova's raised a lot of money and has a lot of support from Bernie Sanders people, but front runners, incumbents, tend not to like to debate. She felt she had to do one. She's gotten it out of the way, and she's not going to be doing any more.
How'd she do?
Yep.
Well, it was kind of a meh debate, but I think that she just showed up just a tool on Tim Canova. But let's remember, Debbie Wasserman Schultz hasn't had a primary in the House, Senate, and congressional district she's in 24 years. There's a reason for that. The district was carried by Hillary Clinton with 69% of the vote. It's a heavily Jewish district. She's the first woman or female Jewish member of Congress from Florida. He's a newcomer and no one knows it. The idea that he's going to win this is probably pretty far-fetched, and that's even truer if you look at the polling.
Yeah, that's going to be the last word, and a good one to end on.
Until we come back.
Thank you very much, Andrea, Tony, Mark. Great to have you come in. All right, stay with us. When we come back, we are going to have
More show.
the weather. Okay, stay with us.
A live look now from our Hollywood beach cam. No storms yet.
And here is Weather Authority meteorologist Jennifer Correa with your Sunday forecast. Jennifer, good morning.
Hi, good morning, Michael and Glenna. You know what? I am so glad there aren't any storms out there, because after last night and this morning, boy, we really deserve something like this. Absolutely beautiful out of Fort Lauderdale's Tower Cam. Finally, the sun coming out, those temperatures rising into the upper 80s as they should. 89 degrees already in Pembroke Pines, but also winds picking up, topping at 18 miles per hour across Miami-Dade County, due east as well. So now we're starting to see a few showers develop along that brisk east wind. They're very small as of now, and they're tracking mainly across Miami-Dade County over the Miami International Airport, some also making their way on shore near Miami Beach as well. Highs today could still manage to get up to 90 degrees. We're still dealing with a lot of high clouds out there. It'll stay breezy with a few passing showers as we head into tomorrow and the new week. Well, typical summertime weather is expected. We do expect those afternoon thunderstorms, but I will say this, don't be surprised by those showers overnight and into tomorrow morning again for Tuesday, but then in the afternoon, keep the umbrellas with you because it could get stormy each and every afternoon. Glenna.
Jennifer, thanks. And we thank you for being with us on this special debate episode for This Week in South Florida. And we would love to hear what you think.
We want to hear from you. Email, Facebook, Twitter. We've got lots of ways for you to be in touch. You be in touch and we'll be in touch with you. Have a great day. Stay informed. Get involved.
Bye.